Hello, what's up, and welcome to another edition of Morgan's Madness. I, of course, am Morgan Barnes from the Chompcast and Sword Chomp, and this is my YouTube channel. Now, it's not one of those channels with me lots of fancy edits and cuts and things like that. Like this channel, the reason I designed it was I could just vent. I mean, there's things maybe I can't talk to my girlfriend about or my friends about, even my close friends, but I wanted this channel to be able to be a place where I can vent the things that have been rambling around in the madness of my mind lately. In this case, it's been a week or two, I think, since my last video, so I have a lot to talk about. It's been crazy. So this video in particular, by the way, gotta have my Diet Dr. Pepper. I hope just watching this video makes you thirsty for a nice, cold, refreshing Dr. Pepper. NFL themed cans, by the way, which is appropriate because at the end of the show I want to talk a lot about the NFL. But if you're someone who follows this channel and you're not really into sports and stuff like that, I'll save that for the end of this show. And so if we get to the sports stuff and you're not interested, you can just, I guess, tune it off or turn it off and tune out. But the first part of the show I want to talk about my obsession with Nier Automata, or Automata, however you want to pronounce it, Nier, which has been kind of a cool surprise. I wanted to talk about Fortnite, which I've been playing a lot lately with my friends. Two shows I've been watching that I devoured lately with my girlfriend. Little Big Lies on HBO, which won a ton of Golden Globes, and of course Mindhunter on Netflix, which I have been obsessed with as well. So then the back end of the show, I want to talk about some NFL stuff because I follow a lot of sports podcasts. I've been a big sports fan since I was a kid, but I have a pretty nerdy outlook on sports as far as like why I really enjoy them. So I hope you give it a shot. But first, I mean, Nier. So Nier Automata was a weird thing. I first started playing Nier back in May of this year. I actually bought it on my birthday, and I had heard a lot of buzz about it, and I was just curious to see what it was all about. I never played the original Nier, and I played it and I thought it was pretty cool. It had a great spirit to it, but for some reason it just didn't grab me. It was weird. I ended up putting like I think about 8 hours into it and then just kind of falling off. I mean, there's some things about the game that I thought were pretty frustrating, and it's a pretty ugly game at times, and I just lost interest. And then we did our Game of the Year shows for my podcast, the Chompcast, by Sword Chomp, of course. And I was compiling my list of my 5 favorite games of the year. And I made the list for the show, and it was done. The whole year was settled in my mind. I compartmentalized everything. I was good. And I decided, well, January is going to be pretty slow. I need something to talk about on the podcast. A lot of these different shows and places that I follow have been talking about that fucking Nier game that I played for a while and then lost interest in. So I went back and put it in just to have something to talk about on the show, and I fell in love with it, and it was the weirdest thing. So I finished the first route through the game, and I hadn't played it since May, so it was kind of disjointed and weird. But I just finished it and started Route B, and I was really, Route B is what hooked me. Going through that game the second time, playing as 9S, and then all the different things about his playthrough, but how they give context to Nier Route A was something I did not expect. Like there's a pivotal scene in Nier where you go to the Woodland Kingdom. It's like a big castle place, and everybody, all these machines are talking about their king. They're trying to protect their king. Protect our king, protect our king. And it's really weird, and it's a really cool spot in the game. And when you get to the boss, you walk up at the end of the castle, and you're really curious to see who is the king. Who is this king everyone's talking about? And you get there, and there's like a crib. It's like a crib sitting out in the middle of this, I guess, throne room or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't look like that, but sort of. And you look inside the crib, and it's like a baby robot. It's like a weird little baby robot. You're like, what the fuck? And then out of nowhere, another android, another beautiful, sexy android character flies out of the fucking ceiling, stabs the little baby robot, says something cryptic, and takes off out the window. After you fight her. You fight her, then she takes off out the window, and you're like, what the fuck? I mean, that was kind of cool, but it was weird. I don't understand the context of this. I don't know about this game. Like, every time it's like something cool is going to happen, it's just like, leaves me a little empty. Well, in Route B, that whole section is fleshed out. You find out that the king was this giant robot who started to lead all these other machines or robots. And when he finally died, or his machine, you know, basically faded away, like human beings, machines eventually over time can basically break down and perish to a degree. They took his spirit or his essence or his core from his machine, and they tried putting it into a baby, what looked like a little baby robot that they made, because robots like to emulate humanity, and they thought that if they took his machine core essence and put it in this baby robot, it would grow into another king, because that's what they saw humans do. Humans have these babies, and then they grow into human beings. That's what a lot of the, like the scene that everyone talks about in Nier, where the robots are having sex. They're just emulating human behavior. That's a lot of what the machines do. So that scene suddenly made sense. They were really sad that their king robot died. They tried to take his robot essence, put him in what they thought would be a baby, because they thought that means it would grow into another big robot. But of course robots don't do that. So they were very sad. They were sitting around looking at this baby robot, and you could see the light was on in the baby robot's eyes, like there was something there, but it was like it couldn't talk, it wasn't doing anything, and it was like oddly sad. All these robots were just sitting around thinking like, huh, okay, why didn't this work? And it was like oddly haunting. And so they added context to that portion of it, and then they explain A2 as a character who you actually get to play as in the third playthrough as well. There's like a cinematic that explained like the king's existence before you ransacked this whole castle, and that whole scene that in Route A was just kind of cool and mysterious but disappointing was suddenly engrossing and made sense and well thought out in Route B, and I was like, okay, now I see why people love Nier. It's clicking with me. And most of Route B was like that. They even cut out a whole section of Route A that I fucking hated, where you play as 2B and you have to track down 9S. You actually go inside of 9S's mind while he's decommissioned, and you have to play this whole hacking sequence. It's incredible. Playing through Route B of Nier really just hammered home how special that game is. And then you get to play Route C, which is like a whole new fucking game, where you play as a new character and the story continues. And I've never played a game where you play the game once, then you play it again as another character to fill in that piece, and then you get to play a third extension of that same story. It's like the sequel to Nier came out immediately. That's what it feels like. I mean, I know it's an illusion technically because you have credits or whatever, but it's all part of the package. But it felt like I played a game, a very special, weird game that had two halves to it. I combined them, had this sort of magical experience, and then it branched off into another game. And that game was like lengthy, a good 10 or 15 hours where you play as A2, and she's a badass character. And it changes the context of that world. So many things change as you play it. And the music of Nier Automata, oh my god. I did a guitar video on the Instagram page for Sword Chomp, and maybe I'll put it up on my personal YouTube as well. The music and like I could not believe how good the fucking music was in this game, and like again something that escaped me the first time I played it, and I don't know why. It's so incredible. I played it for like I think my final playtime is around 60 hours. I've been playing it again. I'm playing Route A again so I can do all the side quests, because now that I'm entrenched in the mystery of Nier Automata, I want to do all those side quests, and they're not the most exciting from a gameplay perspective, but I want to learn more about the mysteries of this world. And then like the gameplay is fun. It's a Platinum Games joint, so Platinum Games just feel good. Like Bayonetta, your character, the way that she slides around and they slash and attack, like they feel good. It's not the most, like the depth it's alright. There's enough depth there to keep it interesting, but it just feels good to play. And that's crucial when you have an incredibly powerful and interesting narrative. It's fun to play, and the soundtrack is just legendary. Like this is going to go down in one of my top 5 soundtracks probably ever. And I say that with no hyperbole, no exaggeration. So, Nier was a transformative experience. It would have definitely made my top 5 games of the year, probably number 3. I think Resident Evil 7 in VR and Cuphead still would have come ahead of it, just because Resident Evil 7 in VR changed my whole perception of virtual reality. And then Cuphead it was an addiction for me, an obsession, and I played the game for months. Not to mention, I think it's a near perfect video game. And if you think that's crazy, I'm sorry, I just do. But it's tough for me to gauge Nier because I had such a powerful experience with Nier that like I almost want to champion it more than those other games, but it has the most flaws, like it has some really, generic side quests. It's got the world at times is really poorly designed and really ugly. Like some of the dialogue is kind of cheesy and hokey at times, kind of like anime soap opera stuff. But there's so much that it does right that it kind of fucks with your brain. It breaks your fucking brain because you want to champion it from the highest mountains, but you know that it has flaws, and that's okay. I mean, like, we don't need things to be perfect, but like it's when the flaws in the game do cause frustration, like some of the world design issues and things like that, and you can't help but think of how much better the game could have been. When I can't help but thinking how much better the game could have been, I have to put that in the context, just because that's the reality of it is, and I want to see the best Nier possible. And I hope Yoko Taro, I did a lot of research after playing Nier, he's a designer that I share a kindred spirit with. I hope that Square gives him like the Final Fantasy series or something big like that to flex his creative muscles with no limitations on the budget and things of that matter. So I can't say enough great things about Nier, despite its flaws. It's very special and very close to my heart. I'm playing a lot of Fortnite lately for the show, and that's kind of weird because I didn't play PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and Fortnite has been a great surprise because to me they've fixed a lot of the issues I had with PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. The world actually looks bright and interesting, like it's colorful, it's charming and goofy. It's sort of like the Overwatch of like these sort of battle royale games. Because it was derived from Fortnite, it's a very polished feeling game. I mean, they were working on Fortnite for fucking ever. It's not the most original thing in the world from a gameplay perspective, but it feels polished. And PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds looks really rough and sloppy in some areas, and because it was more of a concept over execution. And then being able to play this with my friends. I've been playing with Fish on the show and Shay, and we were up till like 2 in the morning the other day just playing hours and hours, and we got second place. And you have all these like mini stories that unfold. Like we were hunkered down in this laundry room as the map was closing down on us and the storm was shrinking us into this little spot, and the enemy was like breaking through the roof, and we were getting in these like really intense firefights, and we were like huddled together just trying to survive. We got second place and we felt really good about it, but it was like just so tense and memorable. And I get the whole obsession with these games because they're about all these little mini stories. So I plan on playing it like crazy for a couple weeks, and then it's one of those games that I think you just kind of get out of your system and move on with your life. As far as like TV shows and stuff like that go, me and my girlfriend watched Little Big Lies, and that was an incredible show. It had like Shailene Woodley in it, Reese Witherspoon, beautiful, incredible. The dude from Parks and Rec who plays Adam, but I can't really remember his fucking name now, I'm sorry. It's got Zoe Kravitz, Lenny Kravitz's daughter, I believe, is in there. It's Alexander Skarsgård, who's from True Blood. And that show is crazy. Like, it deals with a lot of really intense, real things that adults, especially like married people, will understand. Like how life kind of puts you in these situations that maybe you didn't expect. Divorce, how you like parenting situations, and then sort of like real fucked up drama that happens. Like there's a girl that's violently raped at the beginning of the show, and then she's trying to like track the guy down that did it because she got pregnant, and this kid wants to know who his father is, but she's never going to tell him because it was like a one-night stand thing, and she was violently raped, and then she had this baby, and this kid is like the bright spot of her life, but he came from such a dark place, and there's all these secrets. Like the show is just brimming with secrets, and they're kind of alluding to this murder mystery when you first start watching the show, and then it kind of slowly reveals itself, and the last episode is really well done. Me and my girlfriend could not stop watching it. It was really, really good. Oh, Nicole Kidman's in there as well. Beautiful cast, and incredibly well acted. Laura Dern. So if you have HBO or HBO Now, if that sounds like sort of like the very realistic sort of drama of adulting sounds interesting to you, I can't recommend Big Little Lies enough. Big Little Lies. Won a bunch of Golden Globes. It's incredible. Mindhunter. Now, Mindhunter is one that's special to my heart as well because I'm a sucker for like really dark crime dramas. Now I don't get pulled into everything. It has to be really well done. I'll give you an example. True Detective from HBO is one of my favorite shows ever. And I realize as I'm watching those shows, when they're done right, there's just nothing more engrossing than a good like crime drama. But Mindhunter is more than that. There is little like sort of pockets of investigation and crime drama mixed in, but it's mostly about dialogue. The main characters deals with sort of the founding of the FBI's criminal science unit, and the show is basically how he travels around and interviewing serial killers to learn more about them. Because the way his mind works, he finds just crime fascinating because it's a mystery. Why do people do these fucking horrible, unspeakable things that you can just never, ever fathom? And the more you have a dialogue with the people that do it, maybe they can get better at learning how these people work and then learning how to stop them. So that's his idea, is the more we can learn from these killers, the better we can use that to solve crimes. And he does that in the show. He puts it into practice. But the bulk of the show, the reason it's so great is it's basically just like every episode is like he's almost interviewing a new serial killer. Sometimes he'll interview them for an episode or two. But it is just engrossing. The performances are incredible. Like, there's just like a darkness to the show, the lighting, the sort of the concept, learning about how this unit was started in the FBI and how pivotal it was. Like, there's a point in the show where he throws out the term serial killers, and the guy's like, serial killers? What are you making up new terminology now? And that was the first time they had ever used the term serial killer, which is common practice today. So, Mindhunter is so good. The first episode I thought was well done, but it didn't hook me as much as the second one. So if you try Mindhunter, I really recommend the second episode before you give up on it. It's not that the first episode was bad, but the second episode, when he goes to interview Ed Kemper, who's a terrible man who murdered women and then had sex with their decapitated heads, that was when the show really sunk its claws into me, and I realized what it was going to be. I can't recommend Mindhunter enough. And so, yeah, so that's pretty much it as far as the nerdy stuff goes. I'm going to talk about the NFL now, so if you hate sports, thanks for checking this out. But, oh, man. So the Super Bowl is in 2 weeks. The NFL in America is the biggest sport we have. And my personal relationship with the NFL is interesting because I grew up enjoying sports, but I really got into sports because of sports radio. And if someone follows our show, they know a lot about the podcast. I love radio. I love podcasting. I love dialogue. I love good conversation. And that's how I really fell in love with sports. I would watch a game on TV and then I'd go listen to people talk about it. And the way they analyzed it was just so interesting to me. It was there's so many different facets to the game that I didn't know were going to be there. Not to mention the talk was just fun. It's just fun. It's sort of like the idea of sitting around talking about a game with your friends, but in a slightly more serious analytical detail, which in a lot of ways is what we do with our podcast, the Chompcast, from Sword Chomp. So there's no way in hell the guys are going to ever let me talk sports on the show. I mean, Shay loves the NBA and Josh loves his Overwatch leagues, but they don't really give a shit about the NFL. So this video and this channel is a good way for me to vent because I am highly engrossed in the NFL and my friends don't really care. And I have a lot of useless knowledge about it too because when I go for my jogs, I listen to a lot of gaming podcasts, Giant Bomb, kind of funny stuff like that. And then I listen to a lot of ESPN podcasts, like the Dan Le Batard Show, or like Fox Sports. I'll check out Colin Cowherd sometimes and stuff like that, The Herd. So I hear a lot of different perspectives in the sports world, and I'm absorbing a lot of knowledge, and I'm also a fan. The reason I got so interested in the NFL was because it was very much like a war, but I looked at it from a very nerdy perspective, okay? So the quarterback is sort of like the general, right? And then you have his offensive line, sort of this wall of protection with these warriors. Then you have the defensive line coming in to attack the quarterback, and then he has to make these laser precision throws to his wide receivers who are also being defended, and you have these athletes colliding full force. But even on a deeper level, like these people are like archetypes. Like, I was never cut out to be a great jock. I mean, when I was younger, I was really good at baseball, but like the pressure and the stress of it after high school, I was like, I don't want to fucking do this. Like, I was really good at baseball. I was always voted to the all-star teams and all this stuff, but like, I remember one day there was a game and I was up to bat and the bases were loaded and I was the best player on my team. I was like always hitting like home runs or base hits or whatever in Little League, or it's like Little League. I wasn't like, not trying to, suck my own dick here. I'm just saying, like, when I was younger, I was really good at baseball. And I remember walking up and I had a chance to win the game, and I hit this ball, I crushed it. And it slung into the dirt 100 miles an hour, and by some miracle, the kid just reached down and picked it up. He didn't even realize he had it for a second, and threw it to the base, and the game was over. And I remember my coach saying, it's all right. At the end of the game, man, there's nobody I'd rather have on base than you. And that's how baseball goes, and especially in professional baseball. And some of the best players in the world. Aaron Judge, who won the MVP for the Yankees this year, had the most strikeouts, I think, and the whole more strikeouts this year than anyone, and also had more home runs. So feast or famine with him. But as a kid, it was traumatic. I hated failing, and I hated disappointment. I hated that stress. So that's why I got out of it. But as I get older, my fascination was with sports. That level of stress is interesting to me. Like, these athletes who can perform at that level of pressure is just, that's crazy. And they're bred this way their whole life in a way. Like, they're from little kids, they grow, and then they're the best kid in the playground in middle school, and then they're the best kid in high school where it's a lot more serious. So then they get some offers to play at college, and then college is like the first training for the NFL. Crowds, you're the popular guy on campus, you're training all the time, you're also a very malleable part of your life. And then if you're one of the best college players, then you get to go to the NFL, where you get paid millions of dollars to do it. And it's like there's this whole cycle of people, and then you're going to represent a city, and you have these fans who are just so psychotically fanatical about cheering their teams on, and it's insane. It really is. And at the heart of it are these players that perform under this pressure, and I imagine how difficult that is. And some people say, well, they get paid millions of dollars to throw a football, but the amount of pressure that they're under is still incredible, and the amount of detail they operate at. Just look at like a quarterback in the NFL. The things they have to learn, the different defenses, how they're able to operate and throw the ball with such speed, pinpoint accuracy, and then they're hoping that the wideouts can catch it. The wide receivers, are they skilled enough to pull in some crazy catch if it does go a little off, or the ball's flying at full speed and there's a couple big 200-pound football players barreling in on them, and they have to catch the ball and not drop it as they get slammed to the ground. It's just brutal. Like, I was watching the New England Jaguar playoff game this weekend, and Gronk, he's just the biggest, baddest, craziest fucking player in the NFL right now. He's a beast. They joke about him being a polar bear on the Dan Le Batard show. He looks like a fucking polar bear. He's huge. He just got lit up, helmet-to-helmet contact from another player, helmet to helmet, boom, and just Gronk looked like he was having a concussion. I was like, oh my god, like this sport is just so violent that some people don't like it, but at the heart of it is very much about strategy and defense and all these different things, and management, and then of course executing, desire to win, athleticism, and then there's all these other factors like the weather and fans and coaches and yada yada yada, health. So that's at the heart of why I find sports interesting in a nerdy way. Now, as far as these playoffs go, I can tell you, watching the games over the weekend, I'm really curious about the Super Bowl because Tom Brady has a chance to get his 6th ring. And I know a lot of people hate the Patriots, and I understand that. I've always found the Patriots interesting because they're kind of like the villain. And whether it's the movie or sports, I generally like the villains and the underdogs, which I know sounds hypocritical, but I generally like the villains and the underdogs depending on the scenario. In this case, I don't find the Eagles that interesting. I mean, it's a nice story, I guess. Nick Foles was a backup. I kind of like the marquee matchups. Like last year you had Tom Brady and Matt Ryan, who won the NFL MVP. I'd love to see Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady one day. I love those marquee matchups. And this, Tom Brady is there, but Nick Foles is a backup. He's only played a couple games because the Carson Wentz for the Eagles went out with an injury, and Nick Foles has done a great job, but he's still a backup. And that's just a very weird thing because the Eagles are just a really good fucking team. And I think it's going to be a good game. I really do. It's hard for me to imagine Tom Brady losing to a Nick Foles type, but it's not Tom Brady versus Nick Foles. It's a team game, and there's a lot going on. and I'm really excited to see that. I would like to see Tom Brady win just because 6 Super Bowls would be pretty incredible. That's like Michael Jordan-esque. And people already say he's the Michael Jordan of football because he's won 5 and he's been to 7. This is going to be 8. He's already the greatest of all time, but I just would like to see. I'd like to see greatness. More greatness, I think, would be cool. And I've been so addicted lately. I've been playing this stupid Madden game on my phone. I got Fish into it. Just because I've been having like this addiction to just play some fucking football, and I know it only happens to me like once a year. It's really sad. Where like I have like a month where I really just want to play a football game and that's it, and never again. And it's the God's honest truth. But I just get that like I want to strategize and I want to pass and I want like right now I'm in fever. I'm in full NFL fucking fever. It's just embarrassing. And see, there it is on my phone. And Fish it's annoying because Fish doesn't play this game at all. He's been kicking my ass like crazy all the time. Motherfucking Fish, coming for you. So I think me and Fish are going to try and play it on PlayStation 4 before the Super Bowl so I can give him a whooping. It's much different when you're playing it on console than it is on a fucking phone. But the playoffs have been incredible. There's just a lot of great storylines. I mean, I don't even know where to start. I mean, Jacksonville has one of the meanest, craziest defenses I've ever seen in my life, and as a Seattle fan, you know, I lived through the Legion of Boom, but it was interesting as the strategy wore on in that football game this weekend to see New England taking advantage of those penalties. Jacksonville was just starting to get frustrated, aggressive. The thing with a lot of really aggressive defenses is you get a lot more penalties as well, and they would kind of get freaked out when Tom Brady would go back and launch like a 40 or 50 yard bomb. Jacksonville would start to panic, and they were doing these unnecessary penalties, which would then give the New England Patriots great field position. And then there was just a couple really gutsy plays that New England had to make to get them in that game, and then they ended up winning the game by 4 points, and they were down by 10 in the fourth quarter. They won by 4. They looked last year in the Super Bowl, the greatest game I've ever seen. Tom Brady came back from 28-3. And they ended up winning that game in overtime, the first overtime ever in the Super Bowl. That was the greatest game I've ever watched. And then as a Seattle fan, it was heartbreaking, but I watched Seattle squander a 10 or 14 point lead in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and then they still had a chance to win it on a miracle, and then they choked it away with that legendary call at the goal line. So it's crazy to see Tom Brady. He's 40 years old, and he's just cranking away. Like a 40-year-old, the greatest of all time, shredding that Jacksonville defense. And that was such a fun thing to watch. Sports doesn't always necessarily give you those legendary matchups, and when they do, it's so cool. To see the greatest quarterback of all time still playing at a high level, and he got to go up against that Jacksonville Jaguars defense and what he did in the fourth quarter with those 2 touchdowns. We don't have to sit there 4 or 5 years from now and be like, man, I wonder what it would have been like if Tom Brady had faced that defense. We know. It happened. And he's just that good. He shredded the Legion of Boom. He shredded this. He is the greatest of all time, and I would love to see more greatness. But I'm looking forward to an incredible Super Bowl, and I've just been in full NFL fever right now. So, anyways, I think that pretty much should cover it. I can't think of anything else quite on my mind that I'd like to ramble on about. Go splice these videos together and throw it up on the YouTube channel. If you're following my page from Sword Chomp, thank you for our support. Been growing quite a bit, over 4,000 followers for the Chompcast on Instagram. And, you know, I love your support here on this channel as well. Follow it. I try to do some videos every week, every couple weeks, and it'll grow slowly over time. And if it grows enough to where people want more content, I will put more content. But right now, it's a fun thing to do. Put out a video every week or two. So, hope you enjoyed it. These are all the things that have been rambling around in my head. And until next time, this has been Morgan's Madness. Goodbye.